Natasha Brooks pressed her face against the rain-streaked window of the downtown bus, watching the financial district's glass towers pierce through the gray morning clouds. Her phone displayed the same email she had read 17 times since yesterday. Hartfield Gallery wanted to see her today at 2 o'clock for the receptionist position. After 3 months of unemployment and 42 rejections, this interview felt like her last lifeline before her savings completely disappeared. The 27-year-old artist adjusted the second-hand blazer she had found at a thrift store last week. It fit reasonably well, though the sleeves were slightly too long. She had paired it with her most professional black pants and the only pair of heels she owned that did not have scuff marks. Her portfolio bag contained printed samples of her landscape paintings and a carefully formatted resume that tried to hide the gaps in her employment history. Wrong floor, wrong door. Hartfield Tower dominated the downtown skyline with its 40 stories of steel and glass. Natasha entered the marble lobby, feeling immediately out of place among the business professionals who moved with confident purpose. She approached the reception desk where a young woman with perfect makeup barely glanced up from her computer screen. "Hartfield Gallery," Natasha said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. The receptionist frowned slightly. "We have several Hartfield companies in this building." "Which floor?" Natasha checked her phone again. The email only mentioned Hartfield Tower, no floor number. "I'm not sure. It's for an interview. Try the directory over there." The receptionist pointed toward a digital screen near the elevators without looking up. Natasha scrolled through the directory, finding 3 different Hartfield listings. Hartfield Investments on 12, Hartfield Properties on 18, and Hartfield Enterprises on 25. No gallery. Her stomach tightened with anxiety. Maybe she had the wrong building entirely. Her phone showed 1:55. She was running out of time. Taking a chance, she pressed the button for the 18th floor, thinking perhaps the gallery was associated with the properties division. The 18th floor opened into a quiet hallway with thick carpet that absorbed all sound. Frosted glass doors lined both sides, each with discreet brass nameplates. Natasha walked slowly, searching for any sign of a gallery. At the corridor's end, one door stood partially open. She could hear someone speaking inside, their tone professional and measured. Gathering her courage, Natasha knocked softly on the doorframe and stepped inside. The man behind the desk. The office stole her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the entire city skyline. Minimalist furniture in cream and chrome created an atmosphere of understated wealth. Behind an enormous glass desk sat a man who looked like he had stepped out of a luxury magazine advertisement. Ryan Hartfield was perhaps 33, with thick brown hair swept back from a face that combined classical handsomeness with modern edge. His charcoal suit probably cost more than her rent for 6 months. He looked up from his laptop, and his gray eyes met hers with an intensity that made her forget why she had come. "You must be the 2 o'clock appointment," he said, his voice smooth and controlled. He gestured toward the leather chair facing his desk. "Please, have a seat." Natasha hesitated. This definitely was not a gallery. But the way he spoke suggested he was expecting someone. Maybe the gallery shared this office space. She sat down carefully, placing her portfolio bag on her lap. "I'm Ryan Hartfield," he continued, studying her with an expression she could not quite read. "I appreciate you coming on such short notice. My assistant said you came highly recommended, though I'll admit your background is not what I typically look for in this role." "I'm passionate about creating welcoming environments," Natasha said, trying to steer the conversation toward gallery work. "I believe in the power of first impressions and aesthetic harmony." Ryan's eyebrow lifted slightly. "That's an interesting perspective for a corporate consultant." "Corporate consultant?" Natasha repeated, confusion breaking through her nervous composure. Before Ryan could respond, the door burst open. 3 men in expensive suits entered without knocking, their expressions serious. They stopped short when they saw Natasha, exchanging quick glances. "Ryan, we need to finalize the merger documents," one of them said urgently. "The board meeting starts in 15 minutes, and they're demanding answers about your stability concerns." The impulsive lie. Ryan stood smoothly, and something shifted in his expression. He walked around the desk and placed a hand gently on Natasha's shoulder, a gesture that felt both protective and possessive. "Gentlemen, I would like you to meet Natasha Brooks," he said with perfect confidence. "My fiancée." The room went completely silent. Natasha felt her eyes widen in shock. The three men stared at Ryan with expressions ranging from surprise to disbelief. "Fiancée?" the oldest man finally said. "Ryan, this is the first we're hearing about any engagement." "We wanted to keep it private," Ryan said smoothly, his hand still resting on Natasha's shoulder. She was too stunned to move or protest. "But given the board's concerns about my personal life affecting the merger, I suppose now is the right time to share our news." The men offered awkward congratulations and left quickly, their voices fading down the hallway in urgent discussion. As soon as the door clicked shut, Natasha spun around to face Ryan. "What just happened?" she demanded, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and confusion. "Why did you tell them I'm your fiancé?" Ryan moved back to his desk, his expression calm and calculating. "Because I need a solution to a problem, and you clearly need something as well. You're not here for a corporate consultant position, are you?" "I'm looking for Hartfield Gallery," Natasha admitted. "I have an interview for a receptionist job." "There is no gallery in this building," Ryan said. "I'm the CEO of Hartfield Enterprises." "You walked into the wrong office." He paused, studying her reaction. "But perhaps that mistake could benefit both of us." The proposition. Natasha grabbed her portfolio bag, preparing to leave. "This is insane. I should go." "Wait," Ryan said, his tone shifting to something more genuine. "Just hear me out for 5 minutes." Against her better judgment, Natasha stayed standing but stopped moving toward the door. Ryan leaned against his desk. "The board has been pressuring me for months to settle down, to show stability. They believe a married CEO is more trustworthy, more reliable for major business deals. It's outdated thinking, but it affects my company's future." "So you lied to them about me?" "I created an opportunity," Ryan corrected. "I'm proposing a business arrangement. You pretend to be my fiancé for 6 months. Public appearances, family events, company functions. In exchange, I'll pay you $15,000 per month, provide accommodation, and when our contract ends, I'll help establish your art career however you choose." Natasha felt dizzy. This morning she had been hoping for a minimum wage receptionist position. Now a billionaire was offering her $90,000 to pretend to be in love with him. "This is completely crazy," she whispered. "Is it crazier than your current situation?" Ryan asked quietly. "Struggling to pay rent, applying for jobs you're overqualified for, putting your dreams on hold indefinitely?" She hated that he was right. She hated that she was actually considering this absurd proposal. What if people discover the truth? "They will not," Ryan said with absolute confidence. "We'll be completely convincing. Look, I understand this is unexpected. Take tonight to think about it. But I need your answer by 9 tomorrow morning." Natasha nodded slowly and walked to the door on shaking legs. Ryan wrote something on a business card and handed it to her. Their fingers touched briefly, and she felt an unexpected spark of electricity. "Call me when you decide," he said. "But understand this, Natasha. If you agree, we commit fully. Everyone must believe we're genuinely in love." Outside the building, Natasha stood on the sidewalk as people rushed past in both directions. She looked at the business card in her trembling hand. Ryan Hartfield, CEO. Below his name was a phone number and a single handwritten word, "Please." She had walked through the wrong door and stumbled into a situation that sounded like fiction. But her real life was falling apart. Maybe sometimes the wrong door led exactly where you needed to be, even if the destination terrified you. That night, Natasha barely slept. She thought about her overdue rent, her abandoned art supplies, the gallery dreams she had given up. She thought about Ryan's gray eyes and the way his voice had softened when he said, "Please." By 8:30 the next morning, she had made her decision. She called Ryan at exactly 9 o'clock. "I'll do it," she said simply. There was a brief pause. Then his calm voice replied, "Good. Come to my office at noon. We have a lot to discuss." Natasha hung up and stared at her reflection in the mirror. She had just agreed to fake an engagement with a stranger. Her life had become something she never could have imagined. But somehow, it felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Natasha arrived at Ryan's office at exactly noon, her heart pounding with each step down the familiar hallway. This time, she knew she was in the right place, even if everything about the situation felt completely wrong. Ryan's assistant, Patricia, greeted her with a polite but cool smile and gestured toward the office door. Ryan stood by the windows, looking out at the city. He turned when she entered, and she noticed he had removed his jacket, his white shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. Something about seeing him slightly less formal made him seem more real, more human. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to the sitting area rather than his desk. Two leather chairs faced each other with a coffee table between them. "I thought we should discuss this more comfortably." On the coffee table sat a thick document. Ryan picked it up and handed it to her. "This is the contract. I need you to read every page carefully before signing anything." Natasha took the document, her hands slightly unsteady. The first page outlined the basic terms. 6 months from today, their engagement would end with a staged mutual breakup. She would receive $15,000 per month, deposited directly into her account. Accommodation would be provided in Ryan's penthouse, along with all living expenses, a wardrobe appropriate for public appearances, and access to a car service. Page 5 covers the specific rules, Ryan said, watching her read. "We maintain separate bedrooms. No romantic involvement beyond what's necessary for public appearances. We attend events together as required, typically 2 to 3 per week. Complete discretion is mandatory. If either party breaks the contract terms, the agreement ends immediately." Natasha looked up from the document. "What counts as necessary for public appearances?" Ryan met her gaze directly. "Holding hands, casual touches, the occasional kiss if the situation demands it. Nothing more than what an engaged couple would naturally do in public." Her cheeks flushed slightly at the mention of kissing, but she nodded and continued reading. Page 7 detailed the end of the arrangement. After 6 months, they would announce a mutual decision to part ways. Ryan would provide her with a final payment of $30,000 and professional connections in the art world, including gallery introductions and potential exhibition opportunities. "This seems very thorough," Natasha said quietly. "I believe in clarity," Ryan replied. "This is a business arrangement. The terms protect both of us." Natasha found a pen in her bag and signed her name at the bottom of the final page. Her signature looked small and uncertain next to the official legal text. Ryan signed below hers, his handwriting bold and confident. "Welcome to the performance," he said, extending his hand. "Let me show you your new home." The penthouse. Ryan's penthouse occupied the entire 40th floor of a luxury building in the city's most exclusive neighborhood. When the private elevator opened directly into the apartment, Natasha felt like she had stepped into a different world. The space was enormous, with white walls, polished concrete floors, and furniture that looked like modern art installations. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around 3 sides, offering breathtaking views of the city below. "This is incredible," Natasha whispered, turning slowly to take it all in. The kitchen is fully stocked, Ryan said, walking through the open living area. There's a home office if you need workspace, and a gym on the lower level. Your suite is this way. He led her down a wide hallway to a door at the end. When he opened it, Natasha gasped. The bedroom was larger than her entire previous apartment. A king-sized bed faced windows with a view of the river. There was a sitting area with a comfortable couch, a desk, and doors leading to what she assumed was the bathroom. The closet is through there, Ryan pointed to another door. I've arranged for a stylist to come tomorrow morning to help build your wardrobe. For public appearances, you'll need appropriate clothing. Natasha walked to the windows, overwhelmed by the luxury surrounding her. Where is your room? At the other end of the hall, Ryan said. We'll have complete privacy from each other. She turned to face him. When do we start this arrangement? Tonight, Ryan said. We need to create our story first. How we met, when I proposed, all the details people will ask about. Can you meet me in the living room in an hour? We should start preparing. Creating the perfect story. An hour later, Natasha found Ryan sitting on the couch with a notebook and laptop. He had changed into casual clothes, dark jeans, and a gray sweater that made him look younger and less intimidating. She sat across from him, tucking her legs beneath her. Let's start with how we met, Ryan said, pen ready. It needs to be believable and romantic enough to satisfy curiosity without being too elaborate. What about a coffee shop? Natasha suggested. 3 months ago. You were working on your laptop, and I was sketching in the corner. You accidentally knocked over your coffee, and it splashed on my drawing. Ryan smiled slightly, the first genuine smile she had seen from him. I like that. It's simple and has a nice meet-cute quality. So I apologized profusely and insisted on buying you another coffee and dinner to make up for ruining your work. And we discovered we both love old movies, Natasha added, warming to the creative exercise. We talked for hours about classic films. They spent the next 2 hours building their fictional relationship. Their first date at an Italian restaurant. Weekend trips to the countryside. The moment Ryan knew he wanted to marry her, watching her paint at sunrise. The proposal on a rooftop under the stars. By the time they finished, Natasha almost wished their story was real. Ryan was easier to talk to than she had expected, occasionally laughing at her suggestions and offering ideas that showed surprising romanticism beneath his corporate exterior. We should practice, Ryan said, closing his notebook. Physical comfort with each other. In public, we need to look natural together. He stood and extended his hand. Natasha took it, feeling the warmth of his palm against hers. Ryan gently pulled her closer, placing his other hand lightly on her waist. Like this, he said softly. When we're at events, I'll often have my hand on your back or waist. You should lean into me occasionally, touch my arm when you laugh. Small gestures that show intimacy. Standing so close to him, Natasha caught the scent of his cologne, something subtle and expensive. She placed her free hand on his shoulder, trying to ignore how her heart was racing. Good, Ryan said, his voice slightly lower than before. That looks natural. They practiced walking together, sitting side by side, the casual touches that couples share without thinking. Each time Ryan touched her, even though it was purely instructional, Natasha felt that same spark of electricity she had noticed when they first shook hands. The first public appearance. 3 days later came their first test. A charity gala at the Grand Ballroom, one of the city's most prestigious venues. Ryan had warned her that everyone who mattered in business and society would be there, all eager to meet his mysterious fiancée. The stylist had transformed Natasha's wardrobe, but for tonight, she wore a stunning midnight blue gown that hugged her curves before flowing elegantly to the floor. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and professional makeup made her look like someone who belonged in Ryan's world. When she emerged from her room, Ryan was waiting in the living room, looking devastatingly handsome in a black tuxedo. He looked up from his phone, and his expression changed. His eyes traveled slowly over her, and she saw something flicker in them before his controlled mask returned. "You look beautiful," he said quietly, and it sounded genuine rather than performative. "Thank you," Natasha said, suddenly shy. "You look very handsome." Ryan offered his arm. "Ready for your debut?" The gala was overwhelming. Hundreds of people in designer clothes, champagne flowing freely, conversations about business deals and social connections happening at every turn. Ryan kept Natasha close to his side, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. "Ryan Hartfield, you devil," a loud voice boomed. A silver-haired man in his 60s approached with a martini in hand. Finally settling down. "Your shareholders must be thrilled." "This is Natasha Brooks," Ryan said smoothly, pulling her even closer. "The woman who somehow agreed to spend her life with me." The man's eyes traveled over Natasha with undisguised interest. "Beautiful and brave. How did you two meet?" Natasha smiled, reciting their practice story. "A coffee shop 3 months ago. Ryan spilled his drink all over my sketch. And I've been making it up to her ever since," Ryan added, his thumb brushing against her waist in what looked like an unconscious gesture of affection. They moved through the crowd, Ryan introducing her to business partners, investors, and society figures. Natasha played her role perfectly, laughing at the right moments, answering questions with rehearsed responses, touching Ryan's arm when she spoke to him. During dinner, they sat at a table with 6 other couples. Ryan's hand found hers under the table, their fingers intertwining naturally. When someone asked about the proposal, Ryan looked at Natasha with an expression so tender that for a moment she forgot they were acting. "I took her to the rooftop of my building at sunset," Ryan said, his voice soft. "She thought we were just going up there to watch the city lights. I had arranged for string lights and her favorite flowers. When she turned around, I was on one knee." "It was perfect," Natasha added, surprised by the emotion in her own voice. "I never expected someone like Ryan to see someone like me." Ryan squeezed her hand gently. "I'm the lucky one." The mother's arrival. Their peaceful arrangement lasted exactly 2 weeks before Ryan's mother made an unannounced visit. Natasha was in the kitchen making coffee on a Saturday morning, wearing comfortable clothes and no makeup, when the private elevator opened. Charlotte Hartfield swept into the penthouse like a force of nature. She was in her late 50s, impeccably dressed in a cream suit, her dark hair perfectly styled. Her eyes, the same gray as Ryan's, swept over the apartment with practiced assessment before landing on Natasha. "So you're the mystery woman my son decided to marry without telling his family," Charlotte said, her tone sharp. Ryan emerged from his office, clearly surprised. "Mother, I wasn't expecting you." "Obviously," Charlotte said, still studying Natasha. "I had to learn about my son's engagement from the society pages rather than from him directly." Natasha set down her coffee cup, feeling completely unprepared for this encounter. She was wearing yoga pants and an old sweater, her hair in a messy ponytail. Next to Charlotte's polished elegance, she felt like a child playing dress-up. "I'm Natasha," she said, extending her hand. "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Hartfield." Charlotte took her hand briefly, her grip cool and formal. "Tell me, Natasha, what do you do? What's your family background?" "Mother," Ryan said, a warning in his voice. "It's okay," Natasha said, meeting Charlotte's challenging gaze. "I'm an artist. I paint landscapes primarily. My family isn't wealthy or connected. My father was a teacher, my mother a nurse. They taught me that character matters more than status." Charlotte's eyebrow raised slightly. "How idealistic. And what attracted you to my son? His character or his bank account?" The question stung, but Natasha refused to look away. "His kindness," she said honestly, thinking of the moments when Ryan's carefully controlled exterior slipped. The way he listens when I talk about my work. How he makes me feel seen. Something shifted in Charlotte's expression. She studied Natasha more carefully, as if reassessing her initial judgment. Ryan has always been too serious, Charlotte said, her tone softening slightly. Too focused on business, too controlled. You seem different from the women he usually dates. I hope that's a good thing, Natasha said. Charlotte's lips curved in something almost resembling a smile. Perhaps it is. Make me coffee, and let's talk properly. Ryan watched in surprise as his mother sat at the kitchen island and Natasha began making a fresh pot of coffee. For the next hour, Charlotte asked questions about Natasha's art, her childhood, her dreams. Natasha answered honestly, forgetting to filter her responses through the lens of their fake relationship. When Charlotte finally left, she kissed Ryan's cheek and surprised Natasha by taking both her hands. "Welcome to the family," she said. "Don't let Ryan's intensity overwhelm you. Beneath all that control, he has a good heart." After the elevator doors closed, Ryan turned to Natasha with an expression of amazement. "I don't know how you did that. My mother never warms to anyone that quickly." "I just told her the truth," Natasha said. Then, realizing what she had said, she added, "about most things." Ryan stepped closer, and Natasha felt her breath catch. "Thank you," he said softly. "For handling that so well. For being exactly what this situation needed." Standing in the sunlight streaming through the windows, with Ryan looking at her like she was something precious, Natasha felt a dangerous shift in her feelings. This was supposed to be pretend, a business arrangement with clear boundaries. But somewhere between creating their fake love story and holding Ryan's hand at the gala and sharing honest conversation over coffee, the lines were beginning to blur. And that terrified her more than anything else. Time moved differently in the penthouse above the city. Days blended into weeks, weeks into months, and somewhere along the way, Natasha stopped counting. The calendar on her phone reminded her that 5 months had passed since she signed the contract, which meant only 1 month remained before their arrangement would end. The thought made her chest tighten in a way she did not want to examine too closely. Their routine had become comfortable, almost domestic. Ryan left for the office early each morning, but not before making coffee for both of them. Natasha would find her cup waiting on the kitchen counter, prepared exactly how she liked it. She spent her days painting in the spare room Ryan had converted into a studio, the north-facing windows providing perfect natural light. Evenings varied. Sometimes they attended events together, playing their roles as the perfect engaged couple. Other nights, they stayed home, ordering takeout and watching old movies on the enormous television. Ryan had discovered that Natasha loved classic films, and he had started collecting them, claiming it was for authenticity in their cover story. But Natasha knew better. She saw the way he smiled when she laughed at a familiar scene, how he had learned to quote her favorite lines. "You're thinking too hard," Ryan said one evening, breaking into her thoughts. They were sitting on the couch, a safe distance between them, watching Casablanca for the 3rd time. "Just tired," Natasha lied, pulling a blanket around herself. Ryan studied her face with those perceptive gray eyes that seemed to see everything she tried to hide. "1 more month," he said quietly. "Yes," Natasha replied, not trusting herself to say more. On screen, Humphrey Bogart told Ingrid Bergman that they would always have Paris. Natasha wondered what she and Ryan would have when this ended. Memories of a relationship that never really existed? Or something more complicated that neither of them knew how to name? The unexpected guest. The disruption came on a Tuesday afternoon. Natasha was in her studio, working on a painting of the city skyline at sunset, when she heard the elevator arrive. Ryan was not supposed to be home for hours. She set down her brush and walked toward the living room, wiping paint from her hands. A woman stood by the windows, her back to Natasha. She was tall and elegant, wearing a white designer suit that screamed money and confidence. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves down her back. When she turned, Natasha saw a face that belonged on magazine covers, all sharp cheekbones and full lips painted deep red. "You must be the replacement," the woman said, her voice smooth and cold. "I'm Victoria Sinclair. Ryan's ex-girlfriend." Natasha felt her stomach drop. Ryan had never mentioned anyone named Victoria. "Ryan is not home right now. I know his schedule better than you ever will," Victoria said, walking slowly around the living room like a predator circling territory. "We were together for 3 years. I know everything about him." "Then you know he's engaged now," Natasha said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Victoria laughed, a sound without warmth. "Engaged to an artist he met in a coffee shop 6 months ago? Please. I know Ryan, and this isn't his style. He's methodical, careful. He doesn't fall in love quickly." She paused, studying Natasha with calculating eyes. "Which makes me wonder what this really is." Before Natasha could respond, the elevator opened again. Ryan stepped out, stopping immediately when he saw Victoria. His expression went completely blank, that controlled mask Natasha had not seen in months. "Victoria," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "What are you doing here?" "I came to talk sense into you," Victoria said, moving closer to him. "This engagement is ridiculous, Ryan. Everyone knows it. You're trying to satisfy the board, but you're doing it all wrong." She glanced at Natasha dismissively. "You need someone who understands your world, who can actually help your business. Not some starving artist playing dress-up." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You need to leave. The merger is falling apart," Victoria continued, ignoring his request. "I have connections you need. My father's company could save the deal. But I want something in return." She reached out and placed a hand on Ryan's chest. "End this fake engagement. Marry me instead. It makes sense for both our families." Natasha felt like she had been slapped. She stood frozen, watching Victoria touch Ryan with the familiarity of someone who knew him intimately. The worst part was the small voice in her head whispering that Victoria was right. She did understand Ryan's world in ways Natasha never could. Ryan removed Victoria's hand firmly. "The engagement is not fake, and I'm not marrying you. We ended for a reason, Victoria. Multiple reasons. Because I wanted more than you were willing to give," Victoria said. "But you're different now. You're ready to commit. Just not to the right person." "Leave," Ryan said again, his voice harder. "Now." Victoria smiled, unbothered by his anger. She pulled a business card from her purse and set it on the coffee table. "When reality catches up with this fantasy, call me. The offer stands for 1 week." She walked to the elevator, pausing to look back at Natasha. "Enjoy it while it lasts, sweetheart. Ryan always returns to what makes sense eventually." The elevator doors closed on her satisfied smile. Silence filled the penthouse, heavy and uncomfortable. Ryan stood motionless, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Is it true?" Natasha asked quietly. "About the merger falling apart?" Ryan turned to face her, and she saw exhaustion in his eyes. "There are complications. Nothing I can't handle. But Victoria's connections could help." "I don't care," Ryan said firmly. "I'm not using our relationship, fake or otherwise, as a bargaining chip. And I'm certainly not going back to Victoria." Natasha wanted to ask why they had broken up, what their relationship had been like, if he had loved her. But she had no right to those questions. Their contract did not include emotional intimacy or jealousy. "I'm going to my studio," Natasha said, needing distance to process the sudden reminder that their relationship had an expiration date and a purpose beyond themselves. "Natasha, wait," Ryan called, but she was already walking away. The breaking point. 3 days later, everything fell apart. Natasha woke to find Ryan already gone, unusual for him. A note on the kitchen counter said he had an emergency board meeting. She spent the morning painting, trying to ignore the growing anxiety in her chest. At noon, her phone rang. Monica, her best friend who she had been avoiding for weeks because lying had become too exhausting. "Are you watching the news?" Monica asked without preamble. "No, why?" "Turn it on. Business Channel. Now." Natasha grabbed the remote, her hands shaking. The headline across the screen made her heart stop: Hartfield Enterprises merger in jeopardy, CEO's personal life under scrutiny. A reporter stood outside Ryan's office building. Sources say the board is demanding Ryan Hartfield provide proof of stability or step down as CEO. The sudden engagement 6 months ago has raised questions, with some investors calling it a publicity stunt. Meanwhile, Victoria Sinclair, heiress to Sinclair Industries, has publicly stated she could provide the business connections needed to save the failing merger. Natasha's phone buzzed with a text from Ryan: "Don't watch the news. I'm handling it." But she could not stop watching. The reporter continued: "The board has given Hartfield an ultimatum: prove the engagement is genuine or resign from the company he built." Her phone rang again. An unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Miss Brooks, this is Patricia from Ryan's office. Ryan asked me to call. The board wants to meet you. Today at 3 o'clock. They want to interview you separately to verify the relationship is real." Natasha felt panic rising in her throat. "Interview me about what?" "Everything. How you met, your relationship, future plans. They'll be looking for inconsistencies." Patricia paused. "Miss Brooks, I've worked for Ryan for 8 years. I've never seen him care about anything the way he cares about this company. If this meeting goes badly, he loses everything he built." The call ended. Natasha sat on the couch, her mind racing. This had started as a simple business arrangement. She would play a role, earn money, and move on with her life. But somewhere along the way, it had become so much more complicated. She thought about Ryan making her coffee every morning. The way he listened when she talked about art, asking thoughtful questions. How he had converted a room into a studio without being asked. The nights they stayed up talking, forgetting they were supposed to be acting. The way her heart jumped every time he walked into a room. The interview. The board room was intimidating, all dark wood and leather chairs. 7 people sat around a massive table, their expressions ranging from skeptical to hostile. Ryan was not there. Patricia had explained they wanted to interview Natasha alone. "Miss Brooks," the oldest board member began, "we need to ask you some questions about your relationship with Ryan Hartfield." For the next hour, they grilled her. "How did you meet? When did he propose? What are his habits, his preferences, his routines?" They asked about his family, his friends, his dreams. They wanted details no casual girlfriend would know. Natasha answered honestly, drawing from 6 months of actually living with Ryan. She knew he drank his coffee black in the morning but added cream in the afternoon. She knew he worked late when stressed but went to the gym at 6 a.m. without fail. She knew his mother called every Sunday at 9, that he loved old architecture, that he dreamed of designing buildings that combined beauty with sustainability. She knew him. Somehow, without meaning to, she had learned who Ryan truly was beneath the CEO exterior. "Why does he love you?" one woman asked bluntly. Natasha hesitated. This was the question she could not answer with facts or details. "I think," she said slowly, "because I see him. Not his money or his company or his status. Just Ryan. The man who gets excited about old movies and secretly wants to travel more but feels too responsible to take time off. The person who works so hard because he genuinely cares about the people who depend on him." The room was quiet. The board members exchanged glances. One final question, the oldest man said. This engagement happened very suddenly. Some might say suspiciously so, right when Ryan needed to show stability for the merger. Can you understand why we might question the timing? Natasha met his gaze directly. Yes, I can understand that. But I can't control what you believe. I can only tell you that Ryan is the most genuine person I know. If you think he would lie or manipulate for business gain, then you don't know him at all. She stood, tired of defending something that had started as a lie but had become terrifyingly real, at least for her. If you want to fire Ryan because of me, then do it. But you'll be losing the best CEO you could ever have. Natasha walked out without waiting for dismissal. The confession. She found Ryan in his office, standing by the windows with his back to the door. He turned when she entered, and she saw fear in his eyes for the first time since they met. How did it go? He asked. I don't know, Natasha said honestly. I told them the truth. As much as I could. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. If they fire me, you still get the final payment. The contract stands regardless of what happens to me. I don't care about the money, Natasha said, and realized with stunning clarity that she meant it. Somewhere between the fake story and the real moments, money had stopped being why she stayed. Then why are you still here? Ryan asked quietly. The contract ends in 2 weeks. You could have left when Victoria showed up, when things got complicated. Why stay? Natasha's heart pounded. This was the moment to protect herself, to maintain the careful distance they had established. Instead, she spoke the truth that had been growing inside her for months. Because I love you, she said simply. Not the CEO or the money or the lifestyle. Just you. The real you that I get to see when we're alone. I know it wasn't supposed to happen. I know it breaks every rule in the contract. But I can't pretend anymore. Ryan stared at her, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched between them, painful and endless. Then he crossed the room in 3 strides and kissed her. It was nothing like the careful, performative kisses they had shared at public events. This was raw and desperate and real. His hands cupped her face, and she felt 6 months of restraint breaking apart. When they finally pulled away, both breathing hard, Ryan rested his forehead against hers. I fell in love with you the first week, he whispered. When you argued with my mother and won. When you laughed at terrible jokes in old movies. When you painted with such focus you forgot I existed. I've been pretending this was just business while dying inside every night, sleeping down the hall from the woman I wanted more than anything. Natasha felt tears on her cheeks. Why didn't you say something? Because you deserved better than a fake relationship that trapped you. Because I was afraid you were only here for the contract. Because I'm an idiot who forgot that sometimes the best things in life come from walking through the wrong door. They stood wrapped in each other's arms, the city spreading out below them through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Natasha thought about that rainy morning 6 months ago when she had gotten off the elevator on the wrong floor. How terrified she had been, how desperate. What happens now? She asked. Now we stop pretending, Ryan said. No more contract, no more fake engagement. Just us, figuring out how to build something real. What about the board? Ryan smiled, and it transformed his face. They can accept that I'm in love with an incredible artist who makes me want to be better, or they can find a new CEO. Either way, I'm done choosing business over everything else that matters. 1 year later. The gallery opening was everything Natasha had ever dreamed of. Her paintings lined the white walls, each one telling a story of transformation and unexpected journeys. The centerpiece was a large canvas showing the city at sunset from a 40th floor window, the same view she had painted 100 times while falling in love. Ryan stood beside her in a navy suit, his hand warm in hers. Real couples, she had learned, touched constantly without thinking about it. They communicated in glances and small gestures, in the way Ryan's thumb traced circles on her wrist when he sensed she was nervous. "Stop worrying," he whispered. "They love your work." And they did. Gallery patrons moved from painting to painting, several already placing red sold stickers beside their favorites. Monica rushed over, beaming. "This is incredible. I told you that wrong interview would change your life." Charlotte Hartfield approached with her usual elegant posture, but her smile was genuine. "Beautiful work, Natasha. You've captured the city's heart." She glanced at Ryan. "Both of you." After the board interview, there had been a tense week of negotiations. In the end, the board had voted to keep Ryan as CEO, impressed by Natasha's passionate defense and convinced by the obvious truth of their relationship. The merger had eventually succeeded, though not because of Victoria's connections. Ryan had proposed again 3 months after their confession, this time for real. On the same rooftop where their fake story had placed the proposal, he got down on one knee with a ring he had designed himself. "I know we're already engaged," he had said, laughing. "But I wanted to do this the right way. No contract, no timeline. Just me asking you to spend your life with me because I can't imagine mine without you." Natasha had said yes through happy tears. Now, as the gallery crowd thinned and the evening light turned golden, Ryan pulled her close. "Ready to go home?" Home. The penthouse that had started as temporary accommodation had become the place where they built their life together. Natasha's studio was full of paintings, Ryan's office had photos of them traveling together, and every room held memories of learning to love without pretense. "Actually," Natasha said, pulling something from her bag, "I have one more painting to show you." She unwrapped the small canvas she had kept hidden. It showed 2 people standing in an office doorway, the moment of first meeting, painted from memory. At the bottom, she had written, "Sometimes the wrong door leads you exactly where you belong." Ryan studied the painting, emotion flickering across his face. "It's perfect," he said softly. "Just like you. Just like us." As they walked out of the gallery hand in hand, Natasha thought about that desperate, rain-soaked morning when she had pressed the wrong elevator button. She had been looking for a simple receptionist job and had found something infinitely better. Love, she had learned, rarely arrived the way you expected. Sometimes it came disguised as a business arrangement with a stranger. Sometimes it grew slowly over shared coffee and old movies and quiet mornings painting while someone worked nearby. Sometimes it required you to walk through the wrong door and be brave enough to stay when everything in your life changed. Their wedding 3 months later was small and intimate, held on the same rooftop where Ryan had proposed twice. As they exchanged vows that were entirely their own, unrehearsed and from the heart, Natasha realized that their fake story had become real in the best possible way. "I promise to love you," Ryan said, his voice strong and clear, "not because a contract says I should, but because you're my best friend, my inspiration, and the person who taught me that the best things in life can't be planned or controlled." "I promise to love you," Natasha replied, tears streaming down her face, "for walking through the wrong door, for taking a chance on a struggling artist, and for showing me that sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most unexpected beginnings." When they kissed as husband and wife, it felt like coming home. The wrong interview had led to the right love story. And that made all the difference. The end.